And thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks indeed. Thanks for the invitation once more.
Wonderful. Ma'am, just by way of starting our conversation, talk to us briefly about the strategic plan. We obviously know that that is obviously guided by the medium-term strategic framework as well as the NDP. But when we bring it back to Parliament, talk to us about what those key priorities were that we started with at the beginning of the 6th Parliament.
Thanks very much, Asbulela. As you would imagine, any parliament gets established based on the various manifestos of the various parties.
Indeed.
However, in a constitutional democracy, we're guided by the Constitution. So our policy priorities are articulated in the Constitution. It's lawmaking, oversight, public participation. And indeed, oversight is the biggest element.
Absolutely.
And that comes in, we then extract the policy priorities, work with the two houses, have a multi-party committee on each of the houses. The NA has got its multi-party, and COP has got its. And then out of that, we derive what will then become strategic objectives in the strategy of Parliament. That strategy is a 5-year strategy. Then we have our annual performance plans that then define the indicators, the targets against the particular strategic objectives. So what has to happen all the time, we have to link backwards. Know that it's informed also by the National Development Plan,
Yes.
Agenda 2063, and the SADC PF Forum. So we take all those regional plans, the continental plans, and then of course, National Development Plan, which defines how a democracy should actually make sure that there's a reduction of poverty,
Yes.
there's a reduction of inequality in the country, creation of jobs. So those then become right at the top of our strategy, but they're informed by the policy priorities, and those policy priorities derive from what the Constitution says the Parliament must do.
Absolutely. So when we're thinking about what the country and the global community has gone through in the last couple of years with the advent of the COVID-19 pandemic, there's also a perspective that we have regressed in relation to, the progress and where we should have been right now in terms of addressing issues of poverty and inequality. Talk to us about how Parliament is now in a position to begin to effectively address those issues through, as you said, rightfully said, oversight is one of the key pillars of the work of Parliament. Talk to us about how Parliament is positioning itself to address those issues more effectively with the current budget.
Yeah, I think there's 2 levels to it. Members of Parliament are responsible for effective oversight. We as administration are responsible for producing documents, research, content that assist them to ask poignant questions over the cabinet, executive, to ensure that they monitor the budgets of those various departments properly, that the delivery on the budgets that they approve in Parliament is actually seen through the APPs of the various departments. That's the part of Parliament. The vote that Parliament members, the vote that was passed today, it's supposed to say there's so much towards goods and services. The goods and services are then our annual performance plan. So we as officials of Parliament must then take that component and say, how do we attach it to effective lawmaking? How do we attach it or allocate it to oversight? How do we allocate it to public participation? And in so doing, we have to know the priorities and the programs of the various committees of the 2 houses and allocate the budget properly for that. So we as officials do an input into the work of members. Most important, as you're talking about today's budget, it shows the deficiency because very little budget goes towards our ability to ensure that the APP and the strategy is actually fulfilled through effective oversight. And I can say that, Smolen, I think the biggest weak point with how we structure our budget, and maybe that's going to be a lesson going forward, is for us to pull together all the resources, and here I'm talking financial resources, around how much does it cost to exercise oversight. First and foremost is to say, look at the budgets and the fact that we spread our budget allocation right across divisions that have to support members. Okay, salaries are given, but we spread it across people who have to do reconnaissance before the committee goes. We spread it across resources such as whatever venue we have. So there is definitely an inefficiency if you were to ask me a question now, of the allocated annual performance plan goods and services, how much goes to oversight? I'll tell you, wait, I have to put together an Excel spreadsheet and see how much this division manager has spent on taking people out to support, how much this one has spent on the support of a particular committee. So it's all over the place. But I must be honest. We have seen the loophole. We have seen the weaknesses. That is why we've structured our program in Vote 2, according to the policy priorities that are expressed in the Constitution. And that's oversight, public participation, and lawmaking. So that's over time will make it easy for us to say take the allocation and say, for the allocation of effective oversight, we need 100 million. And we need it for the following things so that it's not all over the place.
Indeed. Madam Acting Secretary, you talk about the ability, you talk about the fact that everything is all over the place, and that there is definitely a need to come up with a more effective oversight plan that will be able to ensure that we're also able to do an impact, some kind of impact assessment, so that we're able to assess the quality of oversight. So over and above the financial resources, because obviously the financial resources, they follow a plan. Has there any thought been put into assessing the quality of oversight, and whether in its current shape and format, the way Parliament and of course, perhaps the legislative sector broadly is conducting oversight, is it effective in terms of advancing the country's transformation agenda?
Yeah. You know, if Parliament cannot assess the impact of oversight, and which we still don't do well, we're going to have problems. We will never be arguing for whether we need an increase of budget and so on and so forth. We will not. And you're asking a question as to how can we actually assess the impact of oversight. Indeed. Let me start off by saying what's good about the sixth term of our strategy. We now have adopted an oversight strategy. And that oversight strategy says oversight has to be almost like complete. You know, oversight doesn't start from where an APP of a department is presented to a portfolio committee and select committee. It starts there, yes. Researchers will assess the APP and see the alignment. Then every quarter there's delivery, and then committees have to go out and see whether that which they approved for a particular budget for a department has happened. What we need to do is to make sure that that information comes back. And I think the speaker and a lot of members spoke about it. The fact that there isn't continuous monitoring and tracking of whether that oversight is oversight is impacting on the lives of the people. I'll give you an example, a very basic example. If, for instance, there's a percentage that says by 10 years, in terms of the NDP maybe, there must be a reduction of, let me say, development of skills, and particular niche of skills. We need tool makers, and that's expressed in an APP of a particular department. We as officials must give that analysis, that this is how much has gone into developing this particular skill for a number of people in these areas. We as researchers must say, we've gone through that, we can see that. And then, of course, that's where you say, what then happens to those skills? Are those people being given jobs that are aligned to the skills? So that's where impact is. So if we don't have that cycle of identifying the problem, analyzing the APP, analyzing where the budget goes, telling the members of Parliament what to look out for, give them enough research, give them enough questions, then they ask whatever department it is, whether they've delivered, and then they come back and call that. When they call the minister in a quarterly report, they have to say, by the beginning of April, this is what we passed in our deliberations in terms of your budget and your APP. We can see you haven't met your goal. You haven't trained so many you haven't trained so many people. So therefore you haven't actually executed, and therefore there is no impact on the budget that we have passed. Okay? Either there's something wrong with your strategy, or there's something wrong with your indicator, or maybe you overstretched yourself, or you don't have human resources, or yes, the human resources to even monitor whether you deliver it before you come to Parliament. Where it becomes a problem, those quarterly reports are not thoroughly discussed like that. First. Secondly, we as officials
As you conclude, Madam Acting Secretary?
When we've done the production of research, that's the end of it. No, we must do the whole sector and then check the impact. Lastly, I want to say, Spulen, one of the things we need to do is we must do an independent study. We must commission people who are going to ask those people whether our work has impacted on them. Indeed. I'm talking about oversight. And Absolutely. That will come from the public that we serve.
Absolutely. Madam Acting Secretary, thank you so much for the time that you've been with us and also with the insight shared. But I want to say in conclusion, perhaps you can just give me like a 10-second or 20-second last response. These are very progressive ideas that you're talking about. And I think we spoke about it even in last year's session when we talked about the budget. How are you going to make sure that while you are leading, that all of these ideas, they actually find expression across the institutional machinery? 10 seconds.
10 seconds. We are talking about it. We have a strategy that's been approved, the oversight strategy. And all we need to do now is put in the pillars of how do we make it work. And of course, we're going to have a new secretary. We're going to be inducting him and working with him and supporting him to make sure that the success in what we do is supported by the Constitution.
If we're talking in terms of legacy, what is the legacy of the sixth administration in your view, taking into consideration the fact that you have led this institution during a very challenging time, not only for South Africa, but globally as well? Talk to us about what you see as the highlight or some of the positive things, because very often there's always a focus on the things that have gone wrong. But throughout this, I think the institution has been resilient, and that resilience is also as a result of the leadership that you've shown. But talk to us about legacy.
Where do I start? I think very quickly, the fact that we got COVID, and right in the middle of COVID, when there was a shutdown match, my team and all people who were technologically savvy pulled together and ensured that at least by the Easter, after the Easters of 2020, Parliament committees could meet on hybrid. My team could train members to use technology, and we had given our members these tools of trade, and that's when they realized these tools of trade are useful and they can be used. That's one of the things. To turn around Parliament and make sure that our members use their tools of trade to exercise oversight and accountability was one of the best things that the sixth Parliament did. Together with that, ensuring that there is also hybrid in different spaces of Parliament, that was actually excellent. The last point from my side, the very studio that we are in was actually launched during COVID. And I can tell you the team that we work with, yes, people might undermine them sometimes. Yes, we make mistakes, but I've been able to pull together a team of colleagues who really are willing to work and they put their best foot first.
Absolutely.
And in that way, I think one has been successful to lead that. And I really appreciate the fact that it will continue because we all work for the institution. We don't work for ourselves.
Talking about Parliament and the broader legislative sector as an arm of state, and this is also an issue that keeps on coming up, is Parliament asserting itself effectively as one of the three arms of state and having to take the lead, also just in terms of setting the agenda, the oversight agenda, based on what the pressing needs of our society are right now. Talk to us about, as we conclude, are there any deliverables from a policy perspective when we reflect on what's contained in the APP, when we reflect on the electoral mandate, the MTSF, the NDP? Talk to us about what we can take out of this as probably as one of the key things that we can say as a Parliament over and about the technological infrastructure that we have in place and the very smart, innovative, advanced mechanisms that have been put in place to keep Parliament functional. But ultimately, the mandate of Parliament is to ensure that it improves the quality of life of the poor. So are there any key things that we can take out of the sixth Parliament, delineate that as some of the key things that we've been able to bring out of the storm, so to speak?
Yeah, I think members of Parliament really out of the storm have been able to sustain oversight. I mean, even during COVID, they were able to do oversight in the borders of the country. They are currently able to do oversight in the KZN and France. And irrespective of the fire that gutted the building of the NA, our members have been able to really go out there and make sure that there is delivery. It is difficult to assess the impact. It is difficult in that in the middle of members changing their program so that there's more time for oversight. In the middle of all of that, there's recession. There's actually the whole global recession. There's also a reduction of our budget. So there's quite a lot of things that we're mitigating against the impact that we have seen. We have not been able to see the increase of the reduction of employment. We haven't been able to. But some of the things that have happened very well, the whole campaign of the review of the Women's Charter happened during this time. Indeed. And it's timely, it is correct, because we have to look at the policies and the legislations that have been passed in these two houses, whether they have improved the lives of the women and children.
Absolutely.
And the review of the Women's Charter is quite critical, so that it has to come back. Those outputs from the public must come back. Absolutely. To inform the laws better for women and children of this country to be empowered better and be secured and protected by the government, and the government that's supposed to protect them in terms of the Constitution. That's the best. The other thing is we've expanded our international presence. Yes. The engagement internationally have been very meaningful. Our speaker has been currently appointed to be in the task team of the Ukraine matter, and that's also positive. Absolutely. Yes, we may not be seeing it's not happening at the pace that one would have hoped to, but it's because we are in the turmoil of a changing world order.
Absolutely.
And there's so much of lack of, can I say, coherence. There's an emergence of the right-wing parties. So there's quite a lot of strife that is really fighting against our strategy as the Sixth Parliament. But the Sixth Parliament has done well in as far as reorganizing the program, creating more time for oversight, and that could be carried throughout. Our strategy is refined much better. What we need to spend time on now, assessing the impact that tallies to the outputs of a parliament, whether we're reducing poverty, increasing skills in this country, and ensuring that the community and people of South Africa are safe. And that, to me, it's what will have to be taken going forward.
I think I just want to give you an opportunity to speak around the theme of June month. It is the month of June.
Yeah.
And having been at the forefront of this democracy that we have achieved, you were part of the June 16 uprising, one of those young people who fought very bravely and gallantly to bring us to where we are. What is your message in closing for the young people, for the youth? Because there's a saying that every generation has got its own mandate that it must fulfill. So talk to us about how you will encourage the young people who are currently dealing with a different set of challenges, and is more socioeconomic in nature. But just as you conclude, Madam Acting Secretary.
I just want to say what our young people must look at is that they must start building their resilience and also leveraging on the laws that this democracy has brought to them, and being very forceful to make sure that members of parliament are answerable to the public, driving their own agenda of equality, driving their agenda of reduction of poverty and reduction of unemployment. And I must tell you that, at least in this parliament, I'm proud to say as an acting secretary, we introduced a graduate program in parliament. We've taken about 38 graduates who are now sitting in different divisions in our parliament administration. And we've not taken them for 12 months, we've taken them for 3 years. And what I wish for is for us to be a conduit of exposing graduates to work experience with a view that they will be absorbed by the market, and we become a training ground. And this is the program that we drove with our HRE. And of course, the managers are supporting those graduates. Soon we're going to be having tea with them to also offer them a lot of coaching, because our young people are strong in resistance, but I don't know if they're strong in resilience. They lose confidence, they lose themselves into the turmoil, whatever it is that is a problem, they look at it as a crisis. They offerize anything. So if they perpetually stay in finding things that offer, they will not see that things can be better. And they are the drivers of that. There is no more, yes, they picket, yes, that's fine, but the system is not against them anymore. It's just how they manipulate the system and allow it to work for them. But of course, we also have to assist them in that way.
Absolutely.
And I'm just proud to have been part of the history of the making of the South Africa that we all enjoy in its democracy with the Constitution. But of course, we still have challenges. We really do.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Acting Secretary. We will leave it there for now. That was the Acting Secretary to Parliament, Mayor Baby Jawa, who just shared a wide variety of issues in terms of how the budget will be used more effectively for the current financial year, and just broad perspectives around the policy priorities that are actually anchoring the work of Parliament, and what to look forward to as we conclude, as we move towards ending the sixth Parliament. Do stay tuned.
Following up on our commitments to the people, making your future work better. Parliament TV, channel 408 on DSTV.
The budget reflects the choices that government has to make, and it is the tool it uses to achieve its economic and development goals. In the budget, government sets out what it's going to spend and the income collects, which it needs to finance its expenditure. The government has to balance a wide range of legitimate demands with limited resources at its disposal. Budget oversight is intended to help government move forward to realize its goals by increasing government's accountability to its citizens. The budget process occurs over a period of about 18 months. The budget of any financial year undergoes a four-stage process. The stages are drafting, planning, and formulation, the legislative process, implementation, as well as auditing and assessment. Parliament and government departments plan the budget for months in advance for the following year, implementing the current budget while continuously monitoring it for delivery and compliance with policy, and evaluating and auditing the previous year's budget. During the legislative phase of the budget, the National Assembly, the National Council of Provinces, and the provincial legislatures debate budget votes with the involvement of interest groups and civil society, the media, and the general public. This is to ensure that they reflect national priorities and accommodate outcomes and actions required by the midterm strategic framework. It is important to measure the effectiveness of public spending and the manner in which public resources are spent. The more immediate goals are to ensure that government budget priorities are consistent with the declared policy objectives, and that the financial resources allocated to priority areas are spent fully and properly. However, a larger purpose of the budget process is to contribute to democracy through ensuring openness, transparency, and accountability for public resources. Parliament, following up on our commitments to the people, making your future. In terms of the Constitution, government is accountable to Parliament. Parliament, as the representative of the people, monitors and seeks to influence government policy and action through the budget. The budget is the instrument for translating policies and plans into public goods and services. Any policy or plan without a budget attached to it is unlikely to be successfully implemented. Economic success depends on the ability of government to employ limited resources with maximum effect. The role of Parliament in this regard cannot be overstated. Parliament's duty is to detect and prevent abuse, prevent illegal and unconstitutional budgetary conduct on the part of the government, make government budgetary operations more transparent, and hold the government answerable on how taxpayers' money is spent. Parliament exercises its oversight through various portfolio committees that assess the budget and other plans, as well as the performance of each department, including their financial performance, and hold them accountable. The budget process is crucial to good governance because it ensures that government expenditure remains aligned to South Africa's policy goals and objectives. What is also of great importance is that ongoing monitoring and tracking of the executive by Parliament allows for intervention in the event of wrongful expenditure and failures in service delivery. The process holds government departments accountable for their expenditure and gives Parliament and the citizens it represents an opportunity to make their own demands and interventions. Parliament, following up on our commitments to the people, making your future work better.
In Parliament's oversight and accountability model, it is stated that Parliament's strategic vision is to build an effective people's parliament that is responsive to the needs of the people, and that is driven by the ideal of realizing a better quality of life for all the people of South Africa. And its mission is to represent and act as a voice of the people in fulfilling Parliament's constitutional functions of passing laws and overseeing executive action. Based on Parliament's vision, it requires accountability, a way of ensuring it is properly managed and a means of guaranteeing that Parliament operates within its constitutional mandate. There are a few reasons why oversight is vitally important to the functions of organs of state. First, it monitors how the taxpayers' money is used, and oversight seeks to improve the efficiency, economy, and effectiveness of government operations. Next, oversight ensures that policies announced by government and authorized by Parliament are actually delivered. This function includes monitoring the achievement of goals set by legislation and the government's own programs. Another reason for oversight is the protection of the rights and liberties of citizens by detecting and preventing abuse of power, wasteful spending, as well as illegal and unconstitutional conduct on the part of the government and public agencies. Ultimately, oversight is exercised to improve the transparency of government operations and enhance public trust in the government. The Constitution of South Africa mandates legislative organs of state to scrutinize and oversee executive action, together with the implementation of laws, the application of the budget, and the strict observance of statutes and the Constitution. An important element of oversight is that it entails overseeing the effective management of government departments by individual members of cabinet in pursuit of improved service delivery for the achievement of a better quality of life for all citizens. The oversight cycle begins right at the beginning of the year, when the President delivers the State of the Nation address. The State of the Nation is a summary on the commitments the government is making to the people of South Africa. 2 weeks later, the Minister of Finance delivers the annual budget speech, which allocates funds to the commitments prioritized by the President in the State of the Nation address. Next, once the parliamentary process begins at the National Assembly and National Council of Provinces, there are budget vote debates where each member of the executive details how they plan to allocate and spend the budget allocated to them by the Minister of Finance. Members of Parliament follow this process and look at the implementation of the budget and initiatives in each department to ensure it is carried out. Part of the oversight process includes question sessions in Parliament to the President, the Deputy President, and the different ministers. Additionally, members of Parliament can step outside of Parliament and investigate the progress of projects set out by government departments. This can be done through oversight visits, taking Parliament to the people, or Local Government Week, amongst other programs. The Auditor General is also part of the oversight process, monitoring the expenditure of budget allocated to departments and projects. Parliament has the power under the law and the Constitution to summon anyone to appear before it to answer questions on the spending of public funds. Ministers and government officials are regularly called to appear before committees of Parliament on their work. Should the priorities of a project change and incur changes in the budget as well? For example, money allocated to a specific project is allocated to another where it is needed more urgently for social relief. The committees will follow those changes to ensure the funds are still accounted for and used for the intended purpose. There are oversight mechanisms that are routine and regularly exercised, such as committee hearings and question sessions. Questions sessions may involve ministers appearing before the Houses of Parliament to provide oral responses to questions by members, or it may entail providing written answers to written questions. Members of Parliament can also make statements in the House on any matter. A member of any political party can also give a notice of a motion to bring up issues for debate in Parliament. Plenary debates are another way to bring important information to the attention of the government regarding specific government programs or legislation required to improve service delivery. Members of Parliament may also conduct constituency work, which offers a great opportunity for individual oversight and offers close interaction between MPs and the public. Parliament, following up on the commitments to the people, making your future work better.